And welcome back to the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Kramers, and with me are Justin Strange and Zack.
What up?
Hello. How's it going?
Hello, everyone.
So,
hello. I'm trying out my different.
I want to start this.
Okay, go ahead.
For the edit, right?
Yeah, sure, for the edit.
And we're actually not going to edit any of this. It's gonna be
this is all raw.
Totally, it's going to be all
footage,
baked in.
man. Raw audio. We don't believe in editing.
I'm going to answer you guys a question.
I
What
like
is
that.
the best, worst movie you have seen?
Okay, so let me ask you this when you say best worst, like, are you talking about like The Room best worst?
Potentially. This is a very broad, vague question for a reason.
Okay,
Because
I've got a list, but I don't know if it's the same best worst in my opinion as it might be yours. So I'm sorry, I'll let you talk. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
if I had to put a definition on it, I would say movies that critically were poorly received. They were received poorly by critics.
Okay.
They failed the box office.
Yeah,
they have like a 20% Rotten Tomato score. It's, they were dragged through the mud when they came out.
Mhm.
But when you go back and you watch it, maybe it's just you. Maybe there's a cult following. Maybe it's grown since. But a movie that at the time when it was released had poor reception. But at the very least, you as an individual love it.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we had the same definition because, there's those movies where they're just like silly and stupid. They're so bad, but they're so good. So
Exactly.
The Room comes to mind when I think that definition because it's so bad, but it was supposed to be a serious movie. So it made it hilarious. So it's good. If that makes any sense.
No, I think The Room could certainly count. I think it definitely can be thrown in there.
But I don't
But I
really like
think
that movie. So
The definition I'd say is a movie that you enjoy,
yeah.
but is essentially widely, criticized.
Got it. Okay. Who wants to start? You want to start with this, Jake? Or do you want us to start?
Well, I mean, I asked you.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. Okay, well,
answer the question.
I'll start. So one movie that I really liked, and I got a whole list here, and we don't have to talk about all of them, but there's a few that I really liked that didn't do well at the box office. So R.I.P.D. would be one of the first ones with Jeff Bridges and Ryan Reynolds.
I'm with you.
I really enjoyed that movie. I mean, I watched it way after it released in theaters, right? But it didn't do very well. But I watched it because I was like, Ryan Reynolds, Jeff Bridges, heck yeah, let's do it. And I don't really like Jeff Bridges that much, but I was like, this pairing might be okay. So I watched it and I thought it was kind of a cool movie.
Also, Kevin Bacon.
Concept. Yeah, Kevin Bacon. I totally remember
in there
he
too.
was in that movie. Yes, I remember. Yeah, duh. I was the one that brought this movie up, man. I totally forgot Kevin Bacon was in that. But that's the movie I want to start with. Is like because it was cool. Special effects were cool. I mean, the whole concept. I mean, it's based off a comic book, I believe. So the whole concept to me is neat because comic book plots can get away with a lot more, and same with like anime can get away with a lot more than say original movies and stuff. So I guess not very many people like this movie. Have you guys seen it?
No.
I have. I'm actually with you. I love it. I actually saw it on a plane ride. I was in a plane and I was sitting there for like 6 hours and I was like, well, nothing else to do except watch this little 7-inch screen in front of me. Let's see what's on there.
That's inside of a headrest.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, yeah, this looks fun. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I watched the whole time. I forgot I was on a plane. It's incredibly enjoyable. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. It was just, action packed and all that stuff. It was pretty cool.
Zach, what about you?
Probably a movie that you guys have seen, Batman Forever, came out in 1995. It was kind of the...
I was going to say Batman and Robin. Since we talked about Batman.
That's on the level of too ridiculous. I don't enjoy it. It's so bad I don't enjoy it. It's just to choose a movie I enjoyed that, but was critically torn apart.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, Batman Forever, 1995. Val Kilmer steps into the shoes of The Dark Knight, but this movie was originally going to be a continuation of Tim Burton's movies, but due to apparent backlash from Batman Returns and the darkness of
We're
Returns.
adults.
We are. Sorry, Zach. Sorry, Zach.
Sorry, you just said doo-doo.
You did say doo-doo.
So essentially, of the Batman Returns, I enjoyed the movie, but there was a big transition from Returns to Batman in terms of tone. There was lots of backlash because of McDonald's and their marketing of Batman Returns coming across as joyful and for kids, but when people actually watch the movie, it has lots of dark elements, including when Catwoman's essentially pushed off the top of her apartment building and doesn't die.
You got Danny
She has like 9
DeVito
lives.
as the Penguin. I mean, just
That
that
was a
in
disturbing.
itself. Yeah, just that in itself was like crazy to me.
So that kind of changed Warner Brothers' whole tone on how they wanted to rake in the money. So they went to a more wacky route with Jim Carrey serving as Riddler, and then you have Tommy Lee Jones supposed to be Harvey Dent's Two-Face, but he comes across more as a Joker.
Yeah.
But I think the tone of the movie Batman Forever for me was kind of all over the place. There are moments where it came across as this serious film. Then in comes like Jim Carrey's Riddler performance, and he's being Jim Carrey essentially in green tights with question marks all over them. And there's even the inclusion of cartoon sound effects during the scene when Two-Face and Riddler enter Wayne Manor, and the Riddler's just destroying the Batcave, and it's just
for the record,
over the top.
For the record, this is the Batman movie that you don't enjoy.
No, it's the one he does enjoy.
I do enjoy, but it's
like, you do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But
because I was confused.
No, because the way he was talking about it. No, he does enjoy it.
Okay.
I would say I enjoyed that one too, mainly because of Jim Carrey, because he's my favorite actor. So I'm excited to see this new Riddler, but I did like his Riddler because that to me is kind of like what the Riddler, maybe not as much over the topness as Jim Carrey kind of gave it, but he's kind of all over the place. It's kind of like that's just how I like my Riddler. And then also the Riddler from the Arkham series. I really like that Riddler, but I like Jim Carrey, so I really enjoy it.
But on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 38% based on 68 views. Batman Forever is with average rating of 5.2 out of 10. This is from Wikipedia. The site's critical consensus reads loud, excessively busy, and often boring. Doesn't offer anything innovative, which I enjoy. The music of that particular movie, I mean, it's a theme I can still hum. I have the soundtrack on CD. Elliot Goldenthal's score is fantastic, and then it kind of introduced me to Seal. Kissed by a Rose.
Kissed by a Rose,
yeah, that was another one. I think who is Nicole Kidman? She's in this film, and she plays Dr.
Doctor. That's right.
He's like a psychologist and has some type of affection for.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out if she likes Bruce Wayne, then Batman. She goes back and forth, but her accent kind of slips. Her Australian accent slips into scenes. I think it was a little bit earlier on in her career, but it wasn't too bad.
Her name was, I'm looking for her name.
Chase Meridian.
Oh yeah, Chase Meridian. Yeah. Well, I almost kept saying Veronica Vaughn, but that's Billy Madison. That Veronica Vaughn.
But I think with the Joel Schumacher films, whether it's Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, the sequel, people think of those movies. They think of the bat nipples on the suit.
Oh yeah,
you've seen the suit. And you see the strange shots in the beginning with the opening and putting on the suit and everything. Yeah. But then it comes to the point. You have the opening and crawl, well, not the crawl, but you have the opening, you have the suit up, and then you see the Batmobile, and Alfred comes and says, "Would you like a sandwich, sir?" And then Batman responds, "I'll take drive-through." And then at that point, that's like where you think that's where you knew something was not good. You're in for a ride.
Yeah.
So it's just an all over the place type of movie. I think the music, the overall neon lights of Gotham kind of fits.
I was going to say wackiness. For that aesthetic of Gotham in those movies, I think work because Gotham's always this real dark place, and Schumacher kind of made it. It's still dark, but it's more like almost like a club,
like a Sin City dark.
Yeah. So I would agree. That one was. I remember growing up with those movies, and even Batman and Robin. I was like, I liked that movie as a kid. Now, I don't know if I'd like it as an adult, but there was one part in that movie that I thought was hilarious when I was a kid was when Alicia Silverstone, which is Batgirl, shows up after finding out, who they are. And Robin's like, she knows who we are. We guess we're going to have to kill her. And George Clooney says, yep, we'll kill her later. We have work to do. And I don't know. I thought that was so funny when I was a kid. I think now I would not think that was funny.
Probably George Clooney's like delivery.
Well, yeah, it was
kind of like his subtle it was sarcasm.
Very straight. He's just like, we'll kill her later. We got work to do. And so I thought that was hilarious. All right, Jake, what about you?
My favorite movie, at least the one that I'm going to use for this episode, is Sahara. It is a 2005 Sahara. Is it Sahara or Sahara?
They said Sahara in the trailer, but I don't know. At least like the voiceover.
I don't know. I got a weird thing with language anyway. Hooked on phonics didn't work for me.
I've noticed. It's not a bad thing. I like correcting you. It's fine.
Sahara sounds more exotic.
Yeah.
Sahara. We're going to the Sahara.
We're going to Sahara. Sahara is a 2005 like adventure comedy action film starring Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Not McConaughey.
And Steve Zahn. Somebody else.
Yeah, there's a great cast.
I like Steve Zahn. He's with Keanu Reeves, right? In old movies, or no? Is that a different guy? I don't know.
He does a lot of comedies. He was in Daddy Daycare. He was the Spock.
Yeah,
he was
the guy who knew. He was the nerd who knew Spock.
That's right. He also was recently in a movie called 8-Bit Christmas with Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah,
that was cool.
It's a star-studded cast. It's got Matthew McConaughey, Penelope Cruz, Steve Zahn, William H. Macy, Rainn Wilson in a small part.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Actually, in one of my favorite parts, one of my favorite roles.
Yeah, it's Rainn Wilson.
It's great.
He's
and it's just like this action comedy adventure flick that just got terrible reviews when it came out.
But I bet
the Rotten Tomato meter is at 38% critics and only 53% audience. So even amongst audiences, it's a divisive film.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. And I've never been interested in seeing it, to be honest with you.
It looks, from the trailer, it makes me think, I don't know, early 2000s action. Like maybe I'd check it out.
It's definitely just like one of those turn your brain off movies where you
kind of have to, huh?
You just watch it, and it gets incredibly like more absurd with each scene, and just kind of like builds. There's so much in this movie. There's it's like National Geographic and Indiana Jones and a little bit of like Mission Impossible all got smushed together and had a desert baby. It's ridiculous, and I enjoy it. It's very campy, very over the top, and I can see why it's not a huge success. But I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it at just out with friends, and I didn't know it was bad. I've probably seen this movie like 10 or 12 times, and I just go back every once in a while and watch it because I enjoy it. And I found out that it's a bad movie.
I guess the great thing about being like before, I went to school for it and you went to school for it too, right, Jake? For film?
Tangentially, yes.
Okay. And then, Zack is a reporter, but he loves movies. Like I liked the time before that when we just watched movies to watch movies. So you don't necessarily know a movie is bad. You're just watching it because to you, it looks good.
It's good. Yeah.
So I totally get that where you're like, I didn't know it was bad. I just was watching a movie and I thought it was cool. And now you like it because you've watched it so many times.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's a wonderful film.
I've never seen it, but I kind of want to see it now.
It was really great. It's, Matthew McConaughey in his like dirty, greasy arc in its fullest, like the mid 2000s. Like he's just this dirty, greasy boy. Having adventures. And this is like dead in the middle of that whole arc that he went on.
Does he ask anybody if they have a joint on him? Like a Dazed and Confused when he's like, got a joint.
Yeah, I know what you're referencing. Not in this film, but it gets pretty close.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
So what makes it bad? What makes the movie like having get all these negative reviews? Like what's besides like the campiness or whatever?
Well, hey, let's do this. I'll read some of the reviews.
Okay, great.
I'll read some of the views. Okay. Don't go expecting complex moral or ethical quandaries. You'll likely never think of Ishtar, one of the characters, even once. Despite the vast beauty of the location in Morocco and Spain, the vast lack of chemistry between the two stars is appalling. Sahara is many things, but it is not a movie. It is a skull-splitting cacophony of 21 producers and 4 screenwriters that we know about anyway, standing in the same room shouting into their cell phones.
Jeez.
A shame this slick vehicle often stalls in a traffic jam of action-adventure cliches and unnecessary mucking about.
This review is bad. It's like as campy as the movie might be. I've never seen it, but it's just the way they're writing. I'm not a huge fan of it. Go ahead.
And those are the professional critics. Here are some audience reviews.
Professional critic.
I figured it was a professional critic.
This movie wasn't really as bad as I expected it to be. of course, it is an Indiana Jones movie. It desperately wants to be, but it has some charm. So that's kind of the gist from the audience.
That's like a midway, I would think. Like
yeah,
middle of the road kind of.
That's probably how I'd feel just looking at the trailer of the movie.
Generally, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Nah, I was just gonna say, looking at the trailer, you had the voiceover, the in a world guy. It kind of threw me off a little bit. It's just, like I associate that with like early 2000s flicks, especially. I don't think they were including the voiceover like as a meme, because when they use the in a world.
Oh no, this was not ironic.
Yeah, they're trying to use it these days because it's a meme. But back then, I didn't get the sense. I think they were intentional about it.
Oh yeah, they were super intentional about it. Absolutely. Okay. Well, do y'all want to just keep talking about movies that we liked that were bad?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, critically, Sahara lost $11 million. The supposed budget was 130 million, and it only grossed 119 million internationally. It was supposed to be the start of a franchise. It was supposed to be it was supposed to be like this big thing, and it just kind of flopped. It fell on its face, and it all went down. Apparently, it was plagued with writing problems. It was plagued with producers. It was plagued with directors, because the producer that originally got it was basically the first time producing films, and he gave the writer, who this was actually based off a novel, he gave the writer of the novel creative control, essentially. And then it turned out, he had final say, and he was kind of a dick, and so he just kept refusing everything that they brought to the table. So we went through a ton of rewrites, a ton of like directors, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we know a movie with a ton of rewrites is always good.
Director problems. Oh my god.
That being said, even with all that, I really enjoy it because it is absurd and there is so much packed into this movie, but it's kind of one of those things where you enjoy the ride. You can't wait to see where it goes.
Sure. It seems like, I was thinking about seeing Uncharted movie that's out. It's based off the video game. It kind of had vibes.
We know what Uncharted is.
Adventure. My parents had no idea what it is. Like, if it wasn't based off, like, they didn't know it was based off a game. I think a lot of people going into that, they don't know based off a video game.
I think it's surprising how many films are made that are actually based off of
video games and comics,
other works, and people just don't realize it.
Books, yeah.
Like, I didn't know Sahara was based off a book. I just thought it was a campy action film.
My dad loves Clive Cussler. He's always reading Clive Cussler books. That's his favorite author, and all of those books are kind of adventure based.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So what next? Now what?
So basically, I wanted to ask you guys: is there a defining feature that makes a bad movie good?
A bad movie good.
Yeah, like, so Justin, you mentioned R.I.P.D.
Right.
Zack, you mentioned Batman. It's kind of these the ones with George Clooney.
No, the one.
I've got this. Excuse me, John Kilmer. I got Sahara. Is there? Let's see if we can find a tying thread between the three of them.
Well,
that makes these bad movies enjoyable.
They're both action flicks, right? Or all three action flicks, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I don't really know.
There's elements of enjoyment, like Jim Carrey's Riddler. The music for me in the movie, it's Batman. Just the fact that it's Batman.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You just like Batman to like Batman, I think, or Batman Forever, just because you like Batman.
So action films.
They're all three action films. I guess they're all three in crazy places, but like R.I.P.D. is Earth, right? It's just dead people.
It's a kind of a crazy scenario.
Yeah. And I think, and they're all three based on other properties. So R.I.P.D. is a comic book. Sahara's a book. Batman is, of course, Batman comics and all that stuff. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, because there's certainly been good Batman movies, and there's been good Matthew McConaughey movies and good Ryan Reynolds movies, good Jeff Bridges movies. So I don't know what the overall, like, what all three of them have that makes them bad together, if that makes sense.
Subjective. What the defining feature is.
I mean, all three of them have big actors. Well, Val Kilmer's not necessarily big anymore, but he used to be.
He was, yeah.
And Nicole Kidman and Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, all like star-studded. Like, I guess, I don't know, because
so do we think? I think what you might be getting at is the bones for the film might be bad, but the actors, because of their professionalism and passion, bring it up to a enjoyable level.
I would say so, because all these actors have been in all good movies, you know? So, I mean, and that's just how it is. Like, if you give an actor a crappy script, it's going to be a crappy movie because sometimes they just can't act that well with some scripts, if that makes sense. Like, it's not their fault. They're probably trying, I would think. Maybe some of them are phoning it in, but I'm sure a lot of them are trying. But if the script is bad, then the movie's going to be bad. Or like you said, Jake, a lot of rewrites, a lot of different things changing hands and stuff. So when the movie goes through all that turmoil, you know, it's gonna come out something, you know, horrible. If that makes sense.
It's gonna affect the end product.
So I didn't do much research on RIPD. I don't know its production development cycle and what all it went through. But, you know, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I didn't think the script was bad or anything, but it was okay. Like, I don't know.
There's one movie that has gone through a lot of development hell. It's called Solo: A Star Wars Story. 80% of the film was complete. I think the brothers, what were their names? But it was a duo, brothers.
Oh yeah, and then they switched directors. Is that correct?
Yeah, 80%, and I think they brought on Ron Howard.
Yeah,
Ron Howard.
To finish off the film or do reshoots, but when that happens, something's wrong.
You look at Justice League. Justice League the same way, you know, the original Justice League, where Zack Snyder had to drop out, and so Joss Whedon got in there and finished it up, and it turned out not to be that good.
Marvelized it,
and then Zack Snyder got his chance to fix it, and I think the Zack Snyder cut is awesome. I loved it.
Oh, it's great.
Especially the black and white aesthetic. If you watch it in that way.
Phil Lloyd and Christopher Miller were the original duo for Solo.
Yeah.
Duo for Solo.
Creative differences is always the cliche, in quotes.
That's what they say.
Reasoning, but you know, there's more to it. There's certainly more to it.
Well, I think creative differences probably starts the whole thing, and then it ends up being a whole other thing, and then just like, you know what, screw it, I'm done. You know, like Ant-Man, Edgar Wright was tied to that at first, and then creative differences. He's like, I'm done, and I don't remember who took over, but I still really liked that Edgar Wright version of that.
I would love to see Edgar Wright and
you know, they still kept a lot of what Edgar Wright did. So I mean, Edgar Wright's stuff is still in there. They just, you know, probably mix it in with other things. I still really loved Ant-Man. You know, like I loved that movie. So it doesn't turn out for the worst all the time. At least not to me. Like, even though Ant-Man switched hands, it still, I thought, came out to be an awesome movie.
I think it came out pretty great. I was pleasantly surprised at Ant-Man.
And then Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of popped in. So, are there any other movies y'all want to talk about? I have a few movies that I just want to mention that I really enjoyed.
Well, yeah, go ahead and list us off, because I'm still curious if we can find a thread between good movies. Sure. So what's your list?
Okay, I have a huge list, okay? Well, it's not huge. One of them I put on here because I think it should have been, like, it was a big budget movie that flopped. That was rightfully so, which was The Man from U.N.C.L.E., if you've ever seen that movie with Armie Hammer.
I saw the trailers for it.
Yeah, and what's his face? Superman.
Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah. And I watched it, and I was like, what was that movie about? Like, at the end of it. I was like, I don't know about it. You know, it's based off a comic, and they made I think there was a TV show back in the day, because I remember my mom mentioning it too. And I was like, yeah, Mom, it's not that good of a movie.
I saw the trailers for it, and tell me if my summary from the trailer is wrong. It looked like it was a buddy cop movie with
pretty much
like USA and was it Russia?
No, I think it was England.
It was two international. Okay, England. It was two international parties. I mean,
I think you're right, because and then
Cavill was the Russian, I think.
And then, there's a woman involved too, I believe. I okay. Another one.
Saw the movie.
Another one that I actually surprisingly enjoyed that got a lot of hate. You guys ready for this? Can you guess what it is?
No.
Do you want to try?
The Last Jedi?
No.
When did it come out? Recently?
2016.
2016. Give us a hint.
It starts with Ghost and ends with Busters.
No.
So,
that was definitely because of the all-female cast. That for sure. That I could see.
Yeah,
the politically.
Politically had nothing to do with it. That was a bad movie.
I went to theaters to see. I didn't say it was a good movie. I said I enjoyed it. Okay, there were parts in there that I were like,
that's fair. I asked the question. That's fair.
And so I went to theaters to see it because it was Ghostbusters, and I was like, okay, you know. I was kind of skeptical because of the all-female cast, but when I saw Bill Murray in there, I don't think Dan Aykroyd was in it. I think it was just Bill Murray.
No, it's just Bill.
And I think Ernie Hudson was in it too. I'm almost positive Ernie Hudson, but I could be wrong. Anyway, when I saw, I was like, okay, that wasn't bad. Like it was kind of like Sahara, where it's like it was a fun ride, but I'm kind of glad it's over, kind of thing. So yeah. That movie got a lot of flack, but I was like, it's not as bad as you guys are making out it to be. I think you're just focusing on one thing, which is it's not. Let me see if I can. It's not as bad as people make it out. People make it out to be pretty bad. It's kind of like hyping things up. Okay, it's like hyping things up, and you're like, oh, this movie's so great, and then you watch it, and it's like that movie wasn't as good.
No, I saw that movie in a double feature drive-through theater.
That's awesome.
We went to go see the other movie, and this was just as a bonus. I saw it for free with no expectations, and I walked away thinking it was a bad movie.
You walked out of a drive-in? You must have hated it. If you walked out of a drive-in.
I've never walked out of a movie.
I just left my car in park, trudged down the hill.
Yeah, I've never walked out of a movie, and I don't think I ever will. It would feel
uncomfortable to me.
It would have to be really, really bad for me to do that. Like
I cringe for people that leave movies. It's like uncomfortable seeing that happen, and they never come back to their seat.
Yeah, I think if I went and saw the original Twilight, I might have walked out or got real close because I hated that movie. But I've never walked out of a movie theater. So what else? What else we got? Y'all want to do another one that I have? Okay.
It's like I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, because y'all were being quiet, so I'm just gonna start talking. And so I have a lot. So I'll just start at the top. So there was a little known movie in the 90s called The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. If y'all know what Rocky and Bullwinkle is, right?
I'm familiar.
Okay, so they made a live action movie with Danny DeVito and Rene Russo and Jason Alexander. So, and then Rocky and Bullwinkle, of course, so it was like a live action animation mix thing. And Piper, I don't know how to say her last name, Piper Perabo, I think her name is. She was in Coyote Ugly. But I remember we went to theaters to see that. And actually, when did that come out? Because then I can point an age that I was. But it's like a animated live action mix, and Robert De Niro plays fearless leader, and he actually does a pretty good job. Adventures of Rocky Bullwinkle. Come on.
It's kind of similar to the Tom and Jerry live action mix.
Yeah, and then also the new, I don't know if you guys saw, but they're coming out with a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie.
I saw trailers for that. I don't know.
I'll watch it.
That feels very pandering to me.
Oh yeah. It totally is, but
I hate how Disney owns.
Well,
everything.
they're just like, oh, you know what we can do? We can release this Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers because the people who watch it with their kids will watch it now.
No. What it was is they looked in their vault and they're like, what identity, what character are we about to lose copyright for? Oh, let's make a movie with that.
So that we can keep the copyright. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, it is a funny, because that's why they keep making Fantastic Four movies, because they're about to lose copyrights.
Yeah.
The movie rights to it. And so like I don't know if I know we're talking about something completely different right now, but there's a Fantastic Four movie that came out, I want to say in late 80s, maybe the 70s. But anyway, it was very, very bad, but they just quickly made this movie so they could keep the movie rights to it.
I know the one you're talking about. It was almost, It was kind of like made for TV.
Oh, yeah. It looked like it was made for TV.
Avengers made for TV movie as well.
Are you serious?
Yep.
The Avengers?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
I mean, that probably wasn't like Iron Man and Hulk and Captain America.
There was Hulk. There was Captain America. There was Thor.
So was it like an Incredible Hulk movie with all those people in it?
Not every character like from the current Avengers was in it.
I know, but I mean, but was it like the Incredible Hulk, like Lou Ferrigno's Incredible Hulk?
Yes.
But with
it was.
Okay. Yeah. I know.
There's a bunch of other just like regular dudes in costume.
Yeah, pretty much. Like even Thor is like, he's just got this like hammer, it's like almost like a regular hammer or like a little sledgehammer. I do remember seeing something like that.
They brought in the guy who played Captain America from the Captain America movie from the 90s.
That's what we should also talk about. Made for TV movies. I'm going to write that down because that's a whole list in itself. Okay.
Hallmark Channel.
So, in Lifetime. So The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle came out in the year 2000. So I was about 12 years old. So my mom took a 12-year-old to see The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. So that's good.
What was it rated? PG-13?
PG? PG-13. The only thing...
Actually, that's another one. We should talk about how ratings have changed.
Okay. Yeah,
because PG in the 1970s, it was
PG-13. Yeah.
Well, you know,
or even maybe R-worthy.
I think what is it, Jack Nicholson? I think it's Chinatown.
Well, you know, if you look on IMDb with like older movies, like I'm talking about like 40s and before, it doesn't even have a rating. It just says passed, which means it like passed whatever rating system they had back then, which probably wasn't that great. So yeah. So let's so The Adventure of Rocky Bullwinkle, I remember it pretty well. And I thought it was hilarious back then, and I probably could still watch it and think it was a little funny because I watched the show as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the show. And so there's a part in there that I thought was hilarious where they're trying to get Bullwinkle's attention and he's talking to a wall and he says, it's like I'm talking to a wall. And I thought that was so funny because he was talking to a wall. He's because, Bullwinkle's an idiot. So anyway, sorry.
I haven't seen that movie. I should. I like 2000s films.
So you enjoyed that movie because
I think it's because I watched the cartoon. Like as a kid, I watched the cartoon, and I still would watch the cartoon. So my mom took us to see that, and I think it was pretty random too that she went and took us to see that because she didn't typically take us to movies. But I remember she took us to see that, and she took us to see Small Soldiers, which Small Soldiers is not a movie for a kid.
That's PG-13. By the way.
Yeah, that movie is not a movie for a kid because it has toys in it, but. She took us to see it, and it came out in like 95, I think, or no, maybe a little later than that, but
might have been 97, 98.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Let's see. Yeah, I went to theaters. 98.
I like that movie.
I do. I still like that movie. I really like that movie. Like
Indian in the Cupboard too. Have you seen that one?
Okay, we can talk about 90s movies. You want me to put 90s movies on here, Zach? Here, I got you, bro.
Oh yeah, I just like the 90s aesthetic as well.
Yeah, I do too. I would agree with that 90s aesthetic.
Let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. Remember that movie when we first learned about the live action and the way how mangled the Sonic creature looked, and people were having a big fit, and they basically changed the design after all the complaints.
I read a thing that said that we pretty much cyberbullied an entire studio.
Oh yeah.
Just imagine though if we didn't cyberbully the makers of the movie.
I was like,
it would have been poorly received.
Meth. Yeah, it would have been poorly received, and it wouldn't have a sequel. But since
I enjoyed that movie. I mean, I'm not a big Sonic the Hedgehog lore fanatic, so I don't care about that.
Sonic lore.
I have multiple like VHS, and
there is Sonic lore, Jake.
Tails, Amy Rose.
I don't know about lore, but there is a Sonic.
There's a Wikipedia essentially for Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah.
What am I trying to say? There's a Sonic history. It is not that funny. Should kick him out of the podcast.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you know what? With enough time and patience, anybody can make a lore out of anything. I've seen a Super Mario Brothers lore.
Those two words together. That was great. I'm sorry. Continue.
So there is a rich history of Sonic the Hedgehog. I wouldn't necessarily call it a lore because not really any of it connects. But there's a rich history of Sonic, and I love Sonic the Hedgehog. Even the bad games, I really enjoyed. So when Sonic the Hedgehog the movie was announced, I was like, okay, I could get down with this. At first I wasn't really convinced because I don't know. I just was like, how do you? Because in my head I was like, I know what they're gonna do. It's gonna be like either like Tom and Jerry was, where they're gonna have animated characters that live in this live action world, blah 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 blah. But then they came out with that first trailer, and like I thought he looked weird, right? But I was like, okay, I guess this is Sonic now, And I was like, whatever. And then all that stuff happened. So when they changed him, I was like, okay, I've got to convince people to go see this movie.
That was impressive.
But do you think if the movie was more just focused on Sonic and his world, and he wasn't transported to Earth, it would be people wouldn't relate to it as much?
Well, I think
they need that human element.
Well, yeah, for adults to go see it. I think if they would have stayed in Sonic's world and everything was CGI, they would have been more like an animated movie for children rather than, let's get some live action in there so that not just because,
so parents can justify taking their kids to the movie.
Yeah. And they're like, well, it's got Sonic in it. But really it's just going for me. So I think even if they would have done that, Zach, where they stayed in, God, what is this? It is planet called. What is it called?
Look it up. Come on, Justin. You know the Sonic lore.
Well, his planet is different in the original Sonic cartoon. It's
what is it? It's level 1, right? It's the hills.
That's where what's his face lives. James Marsden. That's where he lives. Green Hills. That's where he lives. Green Hills, Montana.
But Green Hills is the name of a level.
Mobius, I think. Yeah, it's called Mobius. Mobius.
Green Hills is the name of the level in the first Sonic game.
Yeah, that's the name of the first Sonic game. But also, it's the name of where
fictional town in Montana. Yeah.
So, what was I talking about before Jake interrupted me with Sonic lore?
Something about the world or wherever it took place.
Oh, yeah. So I think if they would have done that, if they would have just made it, on planet whatever, wherever Sonic is from, I would have saw it. But I also love Sonic the Hedgehog. So I love it so much. I'm working out a trip to take my students to go see
the second one.
Yeah.
And that one will be taking place. It looks like Seattle.
I guess.
Well, you haven't seen the trailers?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, was Seattle in there?
Yeah. The Space Needle.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're right.
Just
and it's got Knuckles in it.
Just because the Space Needle's in, it doesn't mean it's set in Seattle.
It could be in Space Needle City.
It looks like Seattle.
No, it might be Seattle, but and it's got Idris Elba as Knuckles, so I'm pretty excited.
It would make sense because they had to move after the events of.
No, they stayed.
They obviously moved.
Well, yeah, they might have moved now, but I'm saying
because the government or whatever the Dr. Robotnik entity was after them. So
he's on a different planet.
He comes back.
Yeah, he comes back. So maybe they moved, or it's like the same with the first movie where they just went to California and they're back.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, we got off topic. Sorry, guys, we got off topic. We do that. We tend to do that. Do we want to just talk about another movie?
Second, I'm looking at the critic score for Sonic the Hedgehog right now. See if it fits, because it might actually fit.
Well, Sonic the Hedgehog made good money. They're making a sequel.
It's got okay, but it's got a 63% tomato meter, so it's certified fresh.
Oh, thank God, just barely.
Thank God, Sonic is fresh,
certified fresh. Okay.
So we've talked about. Well, how about this? So I have another question for you guys. We've talked about these bad movies that are good that we enjoy.
Right.
What differentiates these movies versus movies like The Room or Troll 2 or these other movies that are bad
when you say
are bad but they still have a cult following?
Say Troll 2.
Troll 2.
Okay.
Have you not heard of Troll? So Troll 2 is another one of those movies with a cult following. It follows this family.
Crap, I just hit myself in the face with my mic. I'm sorry. I was going to scratch my face and I just grabbed my... Sorry. Oh, here it is. Oh, man, this looks crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's this family who goes on vacation essentially, and their little boy has to save them from being turned into plants by the townsfolk who are actually trolls.
Oh.
They feed them food that makes them turn into plants
so they can
and then they can eat them. And so it's wild. There's a grandpa ghost that helps the kid out. He pees on their lunch one time to keep him from eating it.
Don't call me a pee lunch.
Sorry. It's just a wild movie. Incidentally, there's
what's that green stuff on his face?
I don't know, man.
Blood? Or is it plants?
Plant.
So
probably.
How many?
I don't know what you're looking at, but I'm assuming it's a plant. Incidentally, there's not a Troll 1.
That's what I was about to ask.
This isn't a sequel. This is just a movie that's called Troll 2.
That's weird.
So what differentiates movies like these? I'm sure you know The Room.
I don't think anything. Because cult following is our movies that people enjoy.
Maybe decades later though, they realize how maybe at the time it wasn't so appealing, but then years later,
right? Yeah, I guess that's true.
Learn to love it.
So maybe these are movies, not the cult followings, but the movies that we're saying we enjoy are movies that aren't going to become cult classics. Or probably won't. I'm not going to say not because they could be. But these other movies are movies that people came back to.
So we have the benefit of looking back and seeing that these movies do have a cult following and are widely accepted.
Yeah, I mean,
there's no way to know whether we are.
Yeah, we won't know until it happens. I'm going to put that down as an episode. I don't know if we did already, but
that would be a good one.
Cult movies. So I'm looking at the 50. Let's see what it says. 50 best cult movies from The Room to Eraserhead to Rocky Horror, these are the best movies that inspired deep obsession.
Eraserhead, I have that on my list. I think it's on HBO Max.
I think that these also kind of fall under the guilty pleasure type movies, right? Would you say that?
Yes. I think that would.
Guilty pleasure, but they kind of seem like very odd and bizarre.
Well, it's kind of like
it doesn't seem like an uplifting guilty pleasure.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, here we go. So I'm gonna scold him for saying this, but it kind of makes me think of like guilty pleasure, cult following, like the Human Centipede. You know, like I bet there are people out there that love those movies,
or like Sharknado.
You bet there's people out there
that love the movies.
You bet there's people. This isn't.
I don't.
I'm insinuating you. I'm insinuating by people you mean you, because you do.
I don't love them. Okay, but there's something about them that I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, they're weird. Okay, maybe
it's bizarre. It's the weirdness.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe I do love them because they're freaking weird. You know, I don't know how to explain it. I've only seen the movies once. I've only seen them once, every single one of them. But I bought them on Blu-ray because there was a set, you know, and so I was
how many?
3.
Yeah. So are they? I don't know the tone of the movies. Are they meant to be taken seriously, or?
Yeah, for the most part. So the first one is more of a serious, supposed to be a horror movie, you know. Second one is a little more bizarre and insane, because the first one, you know, you have this surgeon who surgically does all this. So you know what the Human Centipede is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. For our listeners, however,
the Human Centipede is this surgeon takes these 3 people. Well, first he tried it on dogs. Okay, he tried it on dogs, and so then he took people and he surgically like stitched their mouths to their buttholes, right? And there was one guy, and then there was a person in the middle, and there's a person behind him, and so the way that the 2 in the back would eat would be and then he would feed the person in the front and the way the 2 in the back would eat. And so that one I think was meant to be more of a serious horror movie, and so we were like, let's watch a really bad movie one night. That's what we found, so we watched it. The second one I think was a little more comical, because not necessarily comical, but it was a little less of a horror movie and more of just like gross, because it's about this guy. He's got these kind of special needs, and he is in love with the first movie. So he likes the first movie, The Human Centipede.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So they turned the first movie into a movie for the second.
They made it part of the Human Centipede.
Like you were watching an in-universe film.
Yeah, and so he decides he wants to make his own centipede, but instead of 3, he wants to do 12 people. Ooh. But he's not a trained surgeon, so he just like staples their mouths and their faces. Yeah,
that doesn't seem very.
So are these people alive?
Yes, they're all alive. They have to be, because if they're dead, then they're useless. So they're useless to the person who's making them. And so he does it, and of course some people die and all this because he's not trained. And then the third one, it's about this prison warden that wants to take people on death row and make a 100-person centipede. So he's heard of the movie, and he wants to do it too. He wants to get I think he tries to get the governor's permission on it, and he even talks to listen to this. He even talks to the director of the first 2 movies, Tom Six, about it. So he's in the movie, and he talks to him. Wait,
so now the second movie is also an in-universe movie,
and then also the director's in the universe. Isn't that crazy? So yeah, no, it's pretty bizarre. But you know, when we watched it, it was a bad movie night, and then we found out he was coming out with a freaking sequel. So we were like, oh my God, we got to watch this movie. And then they found out he was coming out with a third one. We're like, oh my God, we got to watch this movie. And so
from movie to movie, did it change drastically the tone? Did they all kind of
because consistency from the first to the second, it changes. I think the second and the third are kind of the same in that it's serious, but it's also, you know, kind of gross. And it's more on that gory kind of level, as opposed to trying to be this serious horror movie.
What do you think the point of the director? I mean, I don't know if he's ever said, if you ever looked into this, like what the vision was for this.
I have no idea.
Film.
I don't know where he got.
No idea. Not a clue.
I'll
have some questions for the guy. Actually,
to be honest, Yeah, to be honest with you, I never thought to even look because I didn't really care. I did when I was in college, we had to write a paper on the director, and I almost picked him, but we had to watch 5 movies. He had only come out with 5 movies, and 3 of them were the Human Centipede. So I was like, oh, I better not do this because I can't. I don't want to have to watch 3 of the same movie essentially, which is the Human Centipede. So
I also don't want to put on a watch list.
Yeah, I pretty much I picked Paul Thomas Anderson, so it was easier to.
It's a solid second choice.
Oh yeah. From Tom Six to Paul Thomas Anderson, like okay. So anyway, yeah.
Would you recommend those movies to our listeners if they haven't seen it?
I wouldn't.
No.
Is it one of those movies I got to see before they die?
No, I mean, if you want to,
because of the shock factor.
If you're into that kind of thing, then watch it. Like if you're into like shock factor and kind of gore and stuff like that, go watch at least the first one. But if you're not, do not watch this movie, any of them, unless you just want to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I'm not going to say don't do it. Like go do it, man. Go watch it at least once.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of shock factor. Gory, just for the sake of gore movies.
Well, I didn't realize that was going to be. I'm not necessarily that into that either. But if someone's like, "Oh man, it's really weird," like Mother, the movie Mother, Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Like I didn't realize that movie was going to be weird, but I watched it and I was like, "Oh, I really like that movie. That movie's crazy, but I really like that movie." And I don't think a lot of people.
I don't think that movie got very good reviews either.
No, I was just going to say I don't think a lot of people. I think a lot of people don't like that movie because it's very kind of gross and it's very weird, very weird. But that's why I enjoy it. I do like weird movies for the sake of them being weird. But this one also has a really good story, really interesting story.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you say it's not one of those movies that like holds audience hands?
Right. It doesn't.
It's a little bit.
I did a paper on it.
Would you say?
I did a yeah, it sure is.
And
I did. I get it. Okay.
Careful, listeners.
What was I saying? Oh, I did a paper on that movie, and I had to do research in order to understand it. And so, especially after I did research, I was like, okay, I understand this movie a lot better, and I like it even more now.
Okay, I'm very curious about this because this is a movie that you like. It did not receive rave reviews, but it also does not fit into the campy, fun action romp film that we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
So what makes this movie good?
For me?
For you?
So I do like movies that are weird, shocking, but I also like this movie because I like the story. So it's a what's the word for something that means something else? It's essentially
symbolic?
No, it's essentially the Bible, right? It's stories in the Bible.
Allegories.
Thank you, Zach. It's an allegory for the Bible, like stories within the Bible. So Adam and Eve and stuff like that. Like if you watch the movie
Moses.
Yeah, not Moses though. Sorry, but I get what you're saying. So yeah, like the creation and stuff like that, like it's an allegory for that. And so when I learned that, I was like, oh my God, mind blown. And so that's what people don't understand about it. Is like, they're like, oh, people are eating a baby and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, they're eating a baby, but hey, did you watch the rest of the movie?
I think
they're eating a baby, but
have you guys seen 28 Days Later? I feel like that movie has kind of developed a cult following just because it was, I think, one of the first zombie type movies that was trying to take itself seriously, but still had kind of strange, bizarre, kind of wacky elements to it.
They've spun off comic books and everything off of that.
Yeah, I do know. I have seen the comics, but I haven't read them.
Cillian Murphy, he's in the 28 Days Later.
I like excellent. Him. He's in A Quiet Place Part 2. He was good in that too. Another movie I'm looking at right here is called Empire Records. I guess we're talking about. Well, you know what? No, let's not talk about this because we're getting into cult followings, and that's
let's save that for another podcast.
But these are also movies that, didn't do very well at first and now they're doing okay. So real quick, Empire Records, if you haven't seen that movie, is good. Okay. It's a 90s movie. Very 90s, Zach, if you like 90s movies.
Nice.
Very, very 90s. So, all right. So what else we got, Zach? Or not Zach, Jake?
I mean, I think my last question is, we've talked about good, bad movies. We've talked about the difference between like these kind of cult followings. What about movies that like should have been good, but they just weren't?
So the first thing I think about with movies that should have been good are those movies that what's the word? It's tout themselves. Is that the
Yeah, right. They tout themselves as something spectacular.
As something spectacular. So like with Dune, I'm not going to say Dune is a bad movie because I haven't seen it, but I know, I remember that it did say, this is the next, I think it did say the next Lord of the Rings.
I hated that when they promoted it as such. I was cringe just to get people in the theaters.
Exactly. And I'm like, that makes me not want to go see it. I don't like, it looks like a beautiful movie, and I'm not saying I won't watch it, and I'll probably enjoy it, because it does look like a beautiful movie, but I'm just like, don't try to get me in theaters by saying this is the next Harry Potter, this is the next Lord of the Rings. It's like, just put the movie out.
When has that tactic ever been used before? I can't recall.
I don't know. And if it has, I don't think it's worked. Because, you also have movies like Tomorrowland with George Clooney, right? There's supposed to be this big budget Disney movie, and it lost a lot of money, a huge budget Disney movie. It wasn't just a lot of money spent on this one movie.
Yeah. I had to really think about that one.
Yeah. Tomorrowland with George Clooney and Hugh Laurie was in it. And then that one girl from The Space Between Us, I can't think of her name, but she's in it as well. And so and then I think Valerian and what is it called? The Valerian and the Planet of 1,000 Cities, I think. It's with Dane DeHaan and Sarah, whatever her last name.
That was supposed to be like the next Avatar.
Yeah, and it kind of boosted itself with this, like, going to be this next franchise of movies, and they always do that. In like Alita Battle Angel, it's the same thing. I'm like, and Alita Battle Angel wasn't a bad movie, but I haven't seen a sequel. It's like they just build themselves up to be something, and then they don't do well.
I think this is the first continuing that line of thought, comparing itself to the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
We've had advertising where they tout the producers and the directors and the actors and previous works, but this is the first time that they are directly sourcing another property, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's the first time, but it's the first time I can think of.
It's the first time I am aware of.
Yeah, I don't really know if they've ever done it. And I'm like, I'm cool with them being like, a film by so-and-so, film by a Zack Snyder film. I'll go see Zack, like with Army of the Dead, right? Like I saw that because it was Zack Snyder. I don't care about Batista. I don't care for Batista, but I like Zack Snyder, so I watched it. And so, it wasn't as good as I'd hoped, but I still watched it.
Remember the previews for Mortal Engines, that movie?
Nope.
Oh, yes, from Peter Jackson.
It was, I think, produced by Peter Jackson, directed by Christian Rivers, but they, promoted it as like, from the creator of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson. Yeah. I think that movie was supposed to be another trilogy.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it was poorly received. 26% Rotten Tomatoes. Fresh, or the little green thing. What is that? Is it the cabbage? Whatever. What is that?
It's a tomato. I think it's a green tomato.
Does that mean it's bad? I mean, audience score is 48%.
I still don't know how
tomato meter is 26%. So it looks like it was or poorly received, but it looked cool from the trailers, like this potential new epic.
What movie? Oh,
Mortal Engines.
Oh, I do remember Mortal Engines, because wasn't that the one where it was like
cities?
Cities that were moving cities. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I do remember that. And when those
that could be a cult following, I feel like, potentially. Well, I think it's already based off books or comics, I think.
It is based off books. From my understanding, I didn't watch them. From my understanding is they ruined a lot of the characters and gave them different motivations and stuff.
That's where people get upset.
So they didn't fit with their portrayal in the novel, kind of like they did with the original Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
film.
So I think my problem is, and I've talked about this with my friends before, it's like when things get hyped up too much, not just by previews, but people, So I was in class one time, and it was a film appreciation class. And the one thing my teacher always asked us was, did y'all see any movies? And one day someone's like, oh, well, I saw Frozen. And everybody was like, oh my God, that is the best movie ever made. Best. And I'm just like, okay. And so that was kind of my start as a filmmaker. It was real early in my life, like filmmaker life, because I was really just learning about film. I wasn't learning how to make movies at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I need to see this movie. So eventually my friends and we sat down and watched it, and I was like, this is why. And that's when I thought, never again will I watch a movie when it is hyped up like that.
Yeah, so initially, did it even appeal to you, the movie?
No, not really, because it was just another Disney animated movie. I mean, I figured I'd see it eventually.
And there's so many other better Disney animation movies. Tangled, for
Tangled.
one.
I was going to say
Tangled is so unloved.
And that is exactly the movie I was going to say.
An ace of a movie.
Dude, that movie was awesome. I really enjoyed that movie. And then I saw Frozen. I was like, Tangled.
Brave.
Tangled is so much better.
I never saw Brave.
Brave's excellent.
Yeah, Tangled is really good. And then like, was that Bird Box with Sandra Bullock? The one where she
Bird Box.
So that movie, I still haven't seen it because it was hyped up so much. And then Tiger King, when it came out, I didn't watch it. Well, I did watch it when it first came out because my friend wanted to watch it, and I was like, you know, it was okay. Like there were moments in it I really enjoyed, but the whole thing wasn't just like this great thing that people just made it out to be. You know, just when that happens, that my interest immediately decreases, and it's not because my friends say, "Oh, it's because everybody else likes it." I'm like, no, it's because people keep hyping it up to be this great movie, this great TV show. Then I'm like, now I don't want to watch it because it's not going to live up to the hype. There's just no way.
Yeah.
So sorry, I got on my soapbox a little bit there.
No,
but I answered your question, I think.
You did. So you would say potentially the like self-obsession or the self like grandiose feeling plays a factor into it.
You know,
whenever I think of movies that like I think should have been good but are just bad, I keep going back to the original X-Men. Well, I say the X-Men series.
Talking about the movies.
The movies, yeah. You know, they're just like, and that even checks all the boxes. Like they're campy, it's action, it's supposed to be a romp, and it just falls flat for me every time. I keep thinking about like that the one scene where Storm goes up against Toad, and she's like, "Do you know what happens to a toad when it's hit by lightning?"
Like nobody knows. It's good.
The same thing as everything else. That's awful.
Is that what she says?
So bad. That's what she says.
Oh, I haven't seen those movies in years.
No, that wasn't that was in the movie.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, how could you?
I thought you were making fun of it.
No.
Same thing as everything else. Oh man, that was a lot of build up for nothing.
And it's like those movies should have been so good. Like you have all these powers, you have all these crazy characters.
Then you have Toad,
and it just is bad. And I'm just trying to find the connective tissue between what makes.
I honestly, Jake, I don't think there is one, except for that we like them. You know. I just don't think there's this one thing about all these movies that makes them these kind of movies. I mean, we all have our different tastes and opinions, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them are alike in a way. Like, you know, the first three we talked about, R.I.P.D., Sahara, and Batman Forever. They're actiony, they're campy, and stuff like that. But then you got movies like Mother and, you know, The Human Centipede that are insane. So I don't know. I just don't think. I think maybe some of them, you know, work together, but overall, there's just no real one thing that just puts them in that group together.
Well, then this has been a waste of an hour and a half.
You know what? It's been a waste for you.
I'm actually gonna push back. I'm gonna push back on this.
Okay, go for it.
I think there is a defining feature that we've talked about.
Okay. How come you're just now telling us this?
Both for and against. Because we're talking about it, and I'm trying to put it together.
All right, go ahead.
If I had to say there's one thing, I'd have to say that it's sincerity.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's
sincerity. Because you can watch a film that the writing is bad, the script's awful, it's a campy movie, it shouldn't be any good.
Yeah.
But either through the sincerity of the director, the producer, the actors, the DP, I think there's something in them that you can tell, even if the movie is not quote unquote good.
Yeah. Well,
that quality of care being put into it still resonates.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes a bad movie so good.
You made me go through that whole speech of there not being the same thing. And then you bust that out. And now I have to agree with you because I think you're right. Like so I don't know if you guys have ever seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, but it's essentially this group, like two robots and a guy, and they sit in a theater and they make fun of old movies, right? And the whole time, like these movies that they're making fun of were movies that people like wrote, and they weren't making them to make fun of anything. They were making them because that's the idea they had. They had funding, and they made these movies, and they're like, "Oh, this is good. I hope this movie is great." And then it ends up not being great, and it's so bad that they can make fun of it on Mystery Science Theater 3000. So that's one thing we always talk about when we're explaining Mystery Science Theater 3000 to people is like, there's just guys that make fun of these movies. And the great thing about these movies is these movies were made by people who actually cared about them, and people, put a lot of work into them and all this stuff. Like you're saying, like there was that level of sincerity where they're like, this was their vision and they wanted to get it out there. And now, 30, 40, 50 years later, because some of these were made in the 70s, like they're being made fun of on a TV show. A TV show dedicated to only making fun of movies, So I dang it, Jake.
You've fallen into my trap.
Yeah, I guess I did, man. I guess I did. Because I straight up was like, there's nothing that makes them. But yeah, I mean, I guess that you're right. It's like people that really want to get these movies made, and they put their heart into it, and then they just end up not making money. People not liking it.
I think it shines through in the end.
Yeah. So, all right, that could probably be the end of the episode, right? I think
was an excellent, wonderful conversation.
Where Jake makes me go.
Moral of the story.
Makes me go through the ringer, and
we were just zoo animals to him.
I tell you, man, we're just his puppets.
This is an hour and a half long science experiment
of him messing with our minds. Well, he won't get us next week, folks. Tune in.
I really enjoyed this one. This is really good.
So, thank you guys for listening very much. I hope you enjoyed our conversation.
Hey, this is my episode.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
This is my episode.
Please. You know what?
Jake deserves to wrap it up.
Made it full of me today. You can have the rest of the episode, buddy. It's all
guys,
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. From myself, from Justin, from Zach.
Don't speak for me. I will thank them. Thank you, guys. Reach out to us on Facebook. If you want to do us a favor,
like, subscribe, go to all of our channels at the Fantastic Mr. Podcast, and leave a review on whatever service you are using to listen to us.
Or don't.
But please do.
All right, that'll do it for today, guys. All right?
I'll do it, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.